Pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. This is our first session, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for signing up. I super appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, since this is our first session, tell me a little bit about yourself. And while we do that, let's do a little button test. Real quick, what region are you from?
I'm in Alabama, so the southeast.
Okay, cool. Let's try 3 latency and see if that works real quick.
Okay.
But go ahead. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Corno. I've been playing competitively for about 2.5 years. I main Wolf with Terry secondary, just because I'm an overthinker. With playing, I don't aspire to be like a top tier world class player, but I would like to be like a respectable player, I guess. I would say like maybe state PR or
Yeah.
just more nationally recognized.
Okay.
Nothing like crazy. Just like, oh, people from like other regions will be like, yeah, that's a good player.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever got coaching before?
Yes.
Who from?
Quite a few times. I've gotten coaching from Monsoon, Hobby,
Okay.
Moppin, Danny. I've done a few lessons. I've done lessons with Chunky Kong and Tavares. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm real big on asking for advice because I know I'm stubborn. So I make myself go out and ask people like what they see or what are things that they think I should work on.
Yeah.
But in terms of consistent coaching, it was primarily Moppin, Hobby, and Monsoon. Yeah.
Okay. What made you want to get coaching from me?
So it was actually 2 different people that kind of came up to me. Sean Moppin came up to me and kind of told me how we kind of think the same in a lot of like our Smash career. We kind of taken the same path of like how we had real revelations over the game, and he talked a lot about how your lessons helped.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Danny started taking, he was like, dude, you got to take a Zeke lesson. They're crazy. Like, it's so good.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, cool. And let me see real quick what you put down. You wanted to talk about like overall fundamentals and specifically your movement was something you wanted to discuss. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me a bit about that. What about movement do you feel like you are struggling with?
So I've just recently started to fully encompass like being a wolf main in terms of like I need to be annoying with my movement because my air drift is so like obscene,
Mm-hmm.
and really abusing the fact that I'm hard to hit or commit to,
Right.
and really just, putting myself in very vague places, causing
Okay.
people to like extend and then applying pressure off of that.
Okay.
But I guess I'm seeing if there's more that I could be doing in terms of like where I should place myself, when to commit, when to not, things like that.
Okay. Okay.
Which I know it's like those are like super matchup dependent, but
That's okay. That's okay. There are general ideas we can definitely go over. Okay. And what are some matchups that you like?
I even though they're not the greatest, sortie matchups are cool. Joker is nice. I mean Cable's pretty good. Let's see.
What about the
Sorties.
dislikes?
Oh, dislikes? Oh, Min Min, Game and Watch, Snake, Yoshi,
Okay.
Greninja a little bit, even though I'm a little bit more comfortable in it.
Okay.
And heavies. I despise playing against heavies.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's play a few games. I'm gonna bump it up to 4 for the latency mod, by the way.
Okay.
And then let's play game or 2, and then we'll go from there. That sound good?
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome. Okay.
make sure my latency's good.
All right, let's do it. Whoa, there we go. Good. 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 Very good. What were some things you were thinking about while you were playing that game?
So, playing against Roy, I should pay attention to trying to not always jump first and avoiding scrambles because I have a sometimes I'll be in a scramble and I keep thinking I can press a button out of it. Then I was paying attention to what you were looking for with when I was at ledge where you checked when I saw the first F smash, I was like, okay, so they're checking my drift to see if I'm lazy going back to stage.
Yep.
And you paid attention to whether I lost my jumps or not. And then during ledge trapping, you positioned yourself at roll to see if just to kind of cover options. And so I kind of took that as they're probably not covering jump. And since my jump is more ambiguous, I can kind of just do a full hop, drift one way and see kind of how you responded. And then after the down throw, I noticed you like to tech out.
Good. Okay, let's do one more game.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. I have a question for you, my friend.
Yes.
You do not like big, nasty, lingering hitboxes, do you?
I do not.
Why do you think that is?
Because then I start overthinking when I can punish it.
Right. You have a fixation on trying to win every fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna go over like some like mock situations here. So just go ahead and hit A here. We're just gonna talk for a little bit. So I think you're definitely right that you're self-aware that you are an overthinker, and I can definitely see it in your play, especially in the moments when it'll go from like I initiate first, I initiate first, I initiate first, and then I don't initiate, and you're like, when are you gonna do it? And then I just like don't do it. Or then I'll just like eventually just like do it like at a random time where there's no like rhyme or reason for like when I'm gonna just be like, I'm gonna do the landing there, and you're like, they're gonna do it, but like when, right? And the whole thing is like, this is a really big thing that I love to tell people, and it's really funny. So like, we as human beings have this thing called free will. And that means we can just do things because we want to. Not because there's a reason, or that it's right, or that it's wrong, or because of a read, or anything. I am jumping and naring at you because I want to jump and nair at you. That's it. And if I hit you, that's awesome. But if I don't hit you, that's when we start. Like one of the mix-ups I was hitting you with was like the way I would up tilt, or like I would bait your action and your timing out of shield and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
you were fixated on the nair, not what I was doing after the nair. At all. And so what I want you to think about, and this is really important, is like the way I teach this to everybody is like, if we can't punish A, so like the landing nair or like the jump, it's like, what's B? What's C? What comes after? What comes after? What comes after? You have to play out the game state. I see that you also struggle when you have like moves. Wolf beats a lot of moves, but when you're fighting these like characters that have really nasty hitboxes or properties in which they get to like invalidate your moves, I see that makes you very uncomfortable when you can't solve your problem with like the A button. And I think you're definitely correct that like you need to be mindful of like how you move and your positioning a lot more, because you're always trying to put yourself in a position to fight me back. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions so far?
No, everything's pretty clear.
Good. All right. So then the next thing I want to go over is, so if I jump at you or I dash at you, there are three like kinds of actions that you can pick. Do you know what those three kinds of actions are? And be as broad as possible.
Retreat, fight, and stand still.
So there's a funny one that you didn't even name, which is a defensive option.
Oh,
right? Like shield.
Yeah.
Right? So you're exactly right. Like reposition, like move, right? Move away, get away from that position, whether it be dash, jump, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Fight back, be aggressive, challenge it aggressively, whether it be jumping at them, whether it be just putting a hitbox out, whatever that is. And the other option is a defensive option, shielding, rolling, spot dodging. Those are all options available to you. And I think you definitely try to rely on like those first two. And funny enough, it's kind of how you answered, is like you either just move away and then you just like, that's it, or you just try to challenge me. And when the challenging doesn't work anymore, that's when you get like, that's what kind of goes in hand with what I said before. It's like you get uncomfortable in your play, and that's where you get taken advantage of because you're trying to like solve the problem by beating it. Where a lot of times there are a lot of problems that we can solve in game where it's just, how do I make this happen less? How do I get hit by this less? And this kind of goes in hand with like the base game plan I give every player that I coach is playing to not get hits, to then find hits. And that first step is the most important, is that you need to be better at not getting hit by people. And if you're fixated on like, how do I hit them? You're thinking about what you're doing, not thinking about what I'm doing. Because when you're in control, I think you're really good at being observant of what I'm doing. But once your flow gets kind of thrown off, or if you can't comfortably find your opponent's rhythm, and in this context, like mine, where I'm very much being sporadic and random for the sake of like realizing that it makes you uncomfortable, that's when you start thinking about what you're doing too much.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah. No, you're perfectly right.
A great thing to do to like practice this is like the skill we're trying to garner is information processing. You need to be prioritizing what you see to dictate what you do instead of trying to analyze what's happening in the game. Because while there's a skill in analysis, it's all about context of like when you need to do that. You don't always need to be hyper analyzing what I'm doing. What you need to be paying attention to is what I'm literally doing in the moment. Because I think you're smart enough, and I can see with your character, like you understand when it's your turn and when it's my turn. But when you're spending so much time thinking about how to make it your turn, I get to keep playing. Right? Yeah. I think you're definitely a player that like, everybody has their like thing that they do when they get uncomfortable. And you're definitely a player that like stands in place and tries to fight.
Yeah.
And that's kind of your tell that you're uncomfortable. And the kind of goal that I was just using while we were playing was just, what are all the different things that I can do to make you uncomfortable, and which one of them gets you stuck? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts so far?
Yeah. So with, I'm pretty sure it's just me overthinking again, but when you describe paying attention to what you're doing rather than what specifically is happening,
yes.
Is that more in an idea of like, oh, are they being aggressive, defensive versus, oh, they're naring and fairing?
Yeah, like in a sense where it's like, if you are recognizing that like, oh, they're jumping at me and naring, we already have acknowledged that they are being aggressive. You don't need to be spending time thinking about that and analyzing that and like making that like a conscious thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A great phrase that Cosmos really likes to use is, let the game tell you what to do. And the big thing is, it's okay to not know what to do, because when you don't know what to do, we just do that first step. Do you remember what that first step is?
See what they're doing?
Play to not get hit.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right? Because that's step one. Step one is don't get hit. And step two is try to hit them based on how they like are acting, right? And so if you're like, I don't know what to do, like I'm uncomfortable, you need to be prioritizing like, okay, well, what is the Bowser doing? How are they trying to hit me? Like, what exactly are they doing right now that is going to progress the game state? Or are they doing literally nothing? And what can we do about that? Or what am I comfortable doing here? And things like that. Instead of hyper analyzing how I'm like acting and playing and all of that. Because you frankly just don't have to do that. Like, you're not losing because you're not understanding what someone's doing. You're losing because you're not paying attention to what I'm doing as it's happening. It's like you're a step behind a lot because you're spending too much time reflecting instead of playing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Kind of.
So
It's I kind of understand what you're saying, but
I'll give you a trick that'll help you with this. A really great thing you can do to practice this information processing is narration. Almost like, like play-by-play commentary where they're like, all right, the Bowser's narrating at them, and now they're back airing, and now they're running after them, and blah, blah, blah. No, they're ledge trapping them, and oh, they missed the landing, and blah, blah, blah. Like all like that, right? Where it's just like you just keep going and going and going and going. It's like doing that, but like just for your opponent. Just keep the information flowing and practice getting that information coming in instead of analyzing. Because right now, you don't need to analyze. I can just tell you, like, for a fact right now, your thing that you need to focus on is like staying in the moment. Because if you're in the moment, I can tell just by the way you're playing and moving and like your like understanding of your character is like you know the things to do, but you need the game to tell you when it's the time to do those things, not trying to just like guess and be right about what I'm doing. You don't need to be right. You guessing right does not make you hit me harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so, like, this is something you can practice at any time, whether you're at home playing on Wi-Fi, whether you're at the weekly, whatever. Like, just practicing. Like, if you feel like you are struggling, just focus on, like, narrating. Get the information in. Because if you can take in that information, it will help you be more aware of what is happening. And find those situations where you feel like you are struggling instead of, like, hyper-analyzing what I'm doing and getting decision paralysis. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Like when we have too many things available to us, it's overwhelming. And because you're spending so much time thinking while you're playing, you're giving yourself decision paralysis. And you're playing a character that has a lot of right answers in situations where it's like, I could fair, I could nair, I could grab you, I could do that, I could do that. And it's just like, I just want you to hit him. You got to get better at like just hitting him. And once you get better at like just hitting them and like just not getting hit by them as much, then we capitalize on it. But it's the first step you got to get better at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
Not really. You've basically, like, I've definitely heard this before.
Yeah.
It's just, it's, I guess it's in the moment of, like when I'm playing, I often ask myself, like, I'll do the narration part, which I never really, I guess, thought about it being more of a broad sense, but a lot of times when I adapt, it's more like, what am I getting hit with?
Yeah.
But then that turns into like, oh, they're just doing this back air, so I need to punish the back air. So once again, it does lead me to like standing still.
Yeah.
Like, I played a cloud player and they were just back airing, so I just stood there like and held shield for a little bit, being like, okay, it's gonna come in at some point. And then I just kind of like, I lost that game because you
were so fixated on the one problem and the one thing instead of just, how do I stop getting back at it as much? And like, funny enough, you did the exact wrong thing to do. Do you know why?
Because that was in the past.
It's not even just that it was in the past, is that you kept inserting yourself into a situation to have to like deal with getting back aired instead of making it harder for him to back air you. What I want you to think about is not how do I beat these options? It's how do I make their job harder to accomplish what they want? So if it's like the Cloud is just spamming back air, stop dashing and shielding into them and getting your shield back aired and like fishing for parry, right?
Right.
Because then you're also put into like a mini game where you're like, oh, but they could also grab me. They could also side B mix me. They could not back air. It could be a different aerial. They could do nothing. And you're just wasting your shield, right? Like you're making your job harder and their job easier by doing that. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, that's basically how it goes.
Yeah. And that's why it's like, what I want you to do is just be like, how do I get it put in this situation less? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's try another game.
All right.
There you go. How did that game feel for you?
So I was noticing, I kept trying to tell myself in the scrappy situations to just like stop trying to win the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my John is Joker on Smashville. Uh,
I died to back here at 60. What do you mean? That's
but yeah,
crazy. Anyway, go ahead. Continue.
yeah, it was, it felt harder to try and figure out where to and not to swing, like the difference
Mm-hmm.
between me doing sort of a preemptive, like checking space versus a call out. And so oftentimes I would uh, fiend for either a reversal or I'm thinking, oh, it's my turn now. They won't be expecting this, especially off ledge. Or if I am in advantage, where to, yeah, noticing the difference of like putting myself preemptively versus um, going for the hit immediately. I guess finding my openings was the
Yeah.
hardest part.
The big thing I want you to think about is like, don't always look for like the opening of like, I get to hit you. It's the like, how do I stop being pressured by you? How do I get out of this scenario? Because I think that like the thing that I took advantage of is like, I would hit you and then I'd be like, okay, go ahead and pick a choice. And then you'd pick that choice and then what would happen?
Oftentimes I would just stick to it for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
like I would really commit to the choice. Yeah,
it would lead to what?
you would then just see it and then punish me for that choice.
Yep, exactly. There is a lot of value in recognizing when you can create a situation of what's called like forced RPS, of like, I'm gonna pressure you, whether it be like physical or like positional pressure, and threaten you with like different options, and then go, you choose a choice. And I'm putting myself in a place where it's like I can cover many options, and recognize whether I can or can't punish it. Because there'd be times where it's like right as soon as you would jump out of shield, or as soon as you would get out of the corner, I'd hit you again. Or it'd be like 2 or 3 opportunities later, then I would get you because I continued to pressure you. The key is recognizing, like, I'm not going to win this fight, and I'm going to play it out. And this is the big thing to remember, is like sometimes it's just like, we're just going to play it out. And if playing it out is like, I'm trying to not get hit here, or I'm trying to not die, if it's as simple as that sometimes. Or on the flip side, it's like, I'm not 100% going to hit the shield, like out of option shield, but I'm prepared to see you choose an option. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the situation you're talking about, I guess it's for lower levels of gameplay or slower gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know those places, and I know I feel confident being able to put myself in a position. Like, for instance, the Roy game, it felt a lot easier because the options you had in terms of like mix-ups seemed less. And so once you added like Bowser or Joker, it's where it's like, they're naring, but they could also gun here. And in picking those options, it felt a lot more, I guess, difficult to feel as if I could put you in that situation.
That's right. And like the big thing is recognizing when you are not the one in control. And when that happens, that you have to accept that it's like, I am on the back foot. And instead of trying to make yourself be in control, it's like I said, it's like, how do I not give them as much leverage off of this? And so like the big thing that's happening is like you keep challenging me, even like with shield. It's like you're always challenging me in a way where it's just like, how do I take this situation and make it into me getting to hit you? And if you're actively like choosing to like shield me aggressively, or like just jump at me with a hitbox, if I'm like aware of that, or like positioning myself in a way where I can play around either of these, then both of those options always lose. What you need to do a lot more of is like moving around people. You rely a lot on like going through somebody and trying to just like fight. And like you definitely fall into the category of like what I like to call here, go ahead and just like press A here so the room doesn't die. Into the category of like, it's time to fight players, which is just like, we're close enough to each other, like at the edge of mid-range. Obviously that means we have to fight. And one of the greatest choices you can make when playing a game like Smash is just going, no, I don't want to. And when we play, frankly, good characters, we all have a lot of freedom in choosing to not fight people because of our mobility. You are aware of it, like you at the start of the session, where it's like you are aware that your mobility is good with Wolf. And what you need to be doing more is moving in a way where you're aware of your opponent's burst range. Do you know what burst range means?
Yeah, just the range in which, sort of like the space in which they can cover immediately.
Yep. So that's their immediate burst range, right?
Yeah.
From there, there's then the threat bubble. So for example, I can like jump and fair this far, right? But I can jump and comfortably fair that far, right? And it's still very quick. And so there's that little bit of extra distance that they can reach. And so when we're fighting characters with like larger burst ranges than us, or also have high mobility or similar, this is where it gets hard. So for example, like, you know, you said it before, you know, like Joker on Smashville can be hard because it's hard to move around comfortably. But the thing that we need to be doing is not moving in a way so that we're always challenging them. It's moving in a way to make it harder for them. And like, this is like the lesson of the day is like, how do I make their job harder? And I'm going to give you a really awesome trick. And Javi might have taught you something like this in the past. This is called a reactionary window. What you do is you exit someone's burst range, whether it be like a jump, a dash, but the key is that we exit and then react.
Right.
And when we do this, the goal is to like observe the other player and then to like tap dash forward one time. So remember we said before the 3 options, right? Do you remember what they were?
Yeah, so it's either choose a defensive, in place, dash back, or attack.
Right. And it's like, I could challenge you. I could jump at you, or I could fight, right? I could move in a way, right? I could dash back again and we could do it again, right? Or if I feel like I can't move and I'm not confident in fighting, I shield. There is no right answer. when there's like an open-ended, like they could do XYZ, blah 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 blah. But what we need to do is be actively trying to like set yourself in a position where you can make this choice, because this is how we play neutral. What you're doing a lot is seeing me come at you and being like, okay, I'm gonna try to forward air this, or like I'm gonna try to nair this, and being like, okay, which one's gonna give me the most value, and like how do I like get them to stop nairing at me, right? And I can see your brain trying to do that. Remember what I said earlier. What do we as human beings have?
Free will.
Right? And you know what? You punished my nair like once or twice, and then what did I keep doing?
Nairing. Yeah.
I kept nairing because I wanted to, man. That's it. Yeah. And like that's okay. That's okay, because ultimately, like, even though you punished it once or twice, I still hit you with it 9 times. I hit your shield a bunch of times and didn't get punished. It didn't matter. And that's what I mean. It's like, there is no, like, I punish this, you have to stop. You have to focus on, like, what your opponent is doing in the moment. What I'm teaching you is the art of observation. And, like, true observation, not analysis. Analysis comes after we observe. And the problem is that you're going too quickly from, like, observe to analysis and, like, looking for the end result that you want, instead of just continuing to observe and playing the game passively. You need to be more comfortable just playing and playing it out, and then having something go wrong and being like, oh, I am just getting hit by Joker, like, nair. And, like, there was a point in that last game where, like, you started getting better at dealing with the nairs. And do you remember what move I killed you with on your second stock?
Second stock was... Let's see, so there was the back air. Was back air second stock or fair?
Forward air. And do you remember how I did it?
I think I was in the corner and you called out a jump.
Out of shield. And it's because before I was doing the lingering nairs, right? And then I full hopped, did fair, and then with the second hit only hit you because I called out the timing on your jump, right? And it's because you started using that timing on the nair. When I'm doing those nairs, it's checking you. It's just doing the thing that I want and creating a gameplay loop that's in my control because you're uncomfortable with dealing with it. But the whole purpose of me pressing the nair is to, like, observe. I'm not telling you to emulate this, but the idea is that we can do things like exiting burst range, just whiffing a move safely out of that distance, or just moving around and observing and seeing what people do. Because, like, for example, like, one of the other things I did to you a lot was I would run, like, really far back. And you wouldn't actually immediately take that space. You were very hesitant to take that space because you were expecting me to run really far back and then immediately press a button to cover it. And I very rarely did that.
Well,
a lot of your time playing is like trying to assume what I'm doing. And the big thing is like catching yourself overthinking. And this is like the thing you have to like prioritize working on while you're playing going forward, is like checking in with yourself and being like, do I know what's happening? And that's part of why I asked you, like, do you remember how I took your second stock, which is like a really obscure, random like moment. And it's like in the middle of the match, right? And what's good is you had you took a moment and you were able to reflect on that, right?
Yeah.
And so there's proof that you are taking this information in, but it's about how we use it. And it's that you definitely need to use it more passively instead of trying to, like, how do I word this? I'm going to say this bluntly, and I don't mean this offensively. You're trying to play like a top player, and you don't need to play like a top player because you're not losing to top players. You're not playing matches at top level play. You're playing against Jimbo Bob at locals. And that's totally fair. And like what you got to do is like stay in the moment. Because I have a feeling, like, who are some of the players at your locals that you struggle with a lot?
Oh yeah, I lose to lower level players a lot.
Right, and why do you think that is?
Oh, it's I overanalyze or I over respect their movements or trying to put a reason behind it. Like I've done this for years. That's one of the reasons why Terry came out, is because it's like I just want to.
It's simple.
Like you said, I'm a fighter. I just was like, okay, let me fight.
And be a character that can like absolutely pressure people really hard and skill check people a ton. Absolutely. That makes sense 100%. Dude, I do this shit all the time. I get it. Yeah. Like 1,000,000% I get it. And it's just like the big thing is just like understanding like Well, if you can do that with Terry, why can't you do that with Wolf? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You are spending definitely way too much time like thinking about like what's gonna happen and all this stuff, and like all I want you to do, man, I just want you to play. And it sounds like silly to put it like that, but that is something that you absolutely need to prioritize, is the idea of like play and being in the moment versus analyzing. Worry about analyzing afterwards, reflect on it instead of while you're playing. That makes sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's play another one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Just back up. Don't try to back up and move. Don't try to back up and hit me. Just back up.
Okay.
See, that F-tail made you miss your opportunity. Good. Nice.
Yeah.
What did you do differently on that second stock?
Uh, I the positions that you were in, specifically in the corner, it's easier for me to like position myself around because it's a lot more limited. Like
Mhm.
when you recover, or like when you're in the corner, you can jump or you can fair and air, but I can generally cover that. And then when you're
Mhm.
recovering, the angle you were at, you had to either wolf flash or up B. So I just kind of
Mhm.
stood a little bit further back so you couldn't reversal.
Good. Good.
And yeah, and then just kind of center stage, I felt like oftentimes in those stalemate situations, most people move first. So I just kind of would smash to check it.
Mhm. Yep. Nope, that was really, really good. Like a lot of times you opted to go second. You were just like, you know what? Like, you acknowledged that I was initiating, and instead of trying to beat me for initiating, you let me initiate a bunch and took advantage of that tempo that I was doing it at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the only way you do that is by spending the time observing, and then it's A and B and C, and be like, and now I get to hit you. And sometimes it's D, and sometimes it's W. Like, you got to work your way down the alphabet sometimes and find that opportunity. But the key is like having the confidence to find it.
Yeah. When you mentioned the F tilt caused me to miss my opportunity, it felt like, especially the distance you were at, it seemed like I would have had to like commit super hard in that distance. So I threw out the preemptive F tilt, like just in case you kind of entered a zone. And I have that problem a lot too with laser.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
for instance against Steve, like I'll be fairing the wall and they'll have the 2 block split with the opening in the middle where they might minecart. And so I'll just kind of be sitting there and I choose to preemptively laser in case they do something. But if I have timings off, then I get super punished. So sometimes for me, it's hard to catch those, which I think this falls back again into the me trying to analyze instead of just react. So
You have to be more comfortable doing one thing and being like, I've done one thing. It is now your turn. What are you doing? What are you doing about that one thing? Because a lot of times, like, I'll show you what you're doing so that you can see it on the flip side. Okay? Because it's hard to like look inwards and realize what we're doing. And I will move exactly the way you move right now. And you'll be like, oh, wow. This is why people look at me and just like hit me. Because this is like the wake up call. So come over here and like stand at the edge of the platform, right? Other edge.
Oh, okay.
And look at me. So like what you'll do is you'll go like this. You'll like jump back, dash back in, jump back, F tilt, jump, laser, landing, fair. Like you never pick like a low lag. Like you could do like, if you want to press a button to cover yourself, pick a nair, pick a fair where you can comfortably shield. You press laser, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You press F tilt, you're stuck. You up tilt, you're stuck. If you notice, like the way I would use those tools differently from you is like I would do this, and then based on what I see you do next, then I press this because I know it's going to hit you, or there's a very likely chance that it's going to hit you. Does that make sense? Or like a lot of times you're putting out like high value things, and like your F tilt, absolutely, like you can use F tilt to like stuff people out, but you need to see me running towards you, not going, I'm uncomfortable, I think you're gonna run towards me, and then pressing F tilt.
Right.
In that moment, I didn't punish you. But if you think back to like the Roy game, and that was a couple games ago now, almost an hour ago, in those games, I would F tilt you and side B you for pressing that because I have a move that can reach that far. And as Joker, I would just dash attack you.
Yeah.
Because you would try to F tilt and I'd just be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? There is all context to these things, and the thing that I want you to think about is like you had the idea of like, oh, I'm doing this because like if you're running at me, not if, it's when they're running at me, I do this, not if.
Yeah.
Because I'm not scared of you. That's the difference. And what's funny with like lower level players, sometimes they just don't feel fear. Like I said, they just do what they want because it's fun. It's fun to just, like you saw the beginning of that game, I was just jumping and down airing and stuff, man. I was like, this, if I hit this, that's cool. I could have been back airing you 100%, but I wanted to down air you because I felt like it.
Yeah,
and it made you uncomfortable.
Yeah, because that's where a lot of my frustration usually comes from, especially early on in like playing, is that I can tell, like I literally would give a full thesis of what they're doing, because I could tell you like exactly what they're doing, but I'm like, I don't know how to punish it or make them stop doing it.
And you can't make people stop doing anything. There are two variables in this game. There's you and there's me. And you can only control one of them, my friend, and that is yourself.
Yeah.
You cannot make me do anything. There is no amount of you. You could fight somebody and you could punish neutral get up 100 times in a row. And if that's the option they want to pick, they can keep picking it. Just because you punished it 8 times in a row does not mean that they're going to roll. There's no like guarantee that that's going to happen. There's no like, how do I like to word this as like, there are a lot of people when they play Smash, they define it as like these are the right ways, and it's like when these things happen, we're supposed to do or not do these things, and it's like, like the joke where people are like, oh, like Big Pharma, is telling us these things, right? Big Smash Brothers tells you when you're behind a percent, you have to approach. Big Smash Bros says when your roll gets punished, you have to stop rolling. Like, you don't have to do any of that. Should you consider doing it less? Maybe if it's really getting you punished. But remember what we talked about, like the Joker now, right? You punished 1 out of like 12. Why do I care? You didn't immediately punish it the next time. So why should I care, right? And it's realizing that it's like, it's a bigger picture than just, I showed you I can punish it. Be scared of me now. And it's like, nope, do it again. Do it again. Are you familiar with Coach Ramsey's?
Yeah.
He describes a lot of like the way that I look at the game as like, do you know the concept of pocket sand? Like, where it's like, I am here to show you this thing. Can you deal with this thing? No, I'm going to keep doing it. So like, if your opponent is going to sit there and do neutral get up 100 times and you're going to sit there and nair it 100 times, hell yeah. Don't change it. Don't fix what ain't broke. But on the flip side is if your opponent is doing something and you're not able to deal with it, why should they stop throwing the pocket sand at you? Why would they ever stop? Just because you punish it once, they got more pockets, bro.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How are we feeling? What are we thinking?
It's like it's a lot of the. Well, I can't say all of it's the same that I've heard.
No, of course,
it's hard. It's just hard to, like, I guess in game, because I might get hit for something and then my brain goes, okay, I don't want to get hit by that again, and then, or like these moments of trying to feel confident that I will be able to react to stuff.
The only way you're gonna build confidence is by trying and failing. That's the thing. It's like, you know what? I didn't get it that time, but I know I can do this. Let me try this. But then what we also have to do is, like, when we reflect after, is there an easier way to solve this? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
Also, are you recording this?
I am recording this. Yes, don't worry.
Awesome. Thank the Lord.
All good. All right. Let's do one more game, and then we're going to recap, okay?
Got it.
Is there any character you'd like me to play?
Go Bowser again.
Cool, you got it.
Yeah, just because that's like a big character that I struggled against.
Gotcha.
Or really any heavy works.
Okay. Let's do Bowser. I'm cool with that.
Oh yeah, don't mind me. I'm probably gonna just take off my headphones to be fully into the game.
Go ahead, lock in, bro. You got this.
Yeah, thank you. that was hard as hell.
Hey man, I told you we're gonna lock in. That's okay.
Because it's like,
Go ahead.
It's so, especially picking spots, and especially, I know you said that even though you're not, Big Smash tells you that if you're down stock, you have to approach, but it felt like a lot of the mileage you could get versus mine, like it kind of could collapse on itself because, like, say you're up 3 stocks to 1. Now the options that you can pick are basically anything because the risk reward is so much more skewed to your side.
But if you think about it, the crazier options I picked were in the first stocks.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny, right?
Besides the down B, I will say.
That one was a little goofy. I admittedly did that on accident.
Oh,
I meant to do it the other way. Either way, it would have broke your shield, but I definitely meant to do it the other way. But yeah, you know what? We take those. But like the F smash is like a great example of that, where it's like there's a lot of weird risk and reward, but like what skews the risk reward in this matchup is like my moves inherently beat moves, and what that means is like you have to not challenge it aggressively. So like for example, there'd be a lot of times where I would like hit you or hit your shield, and you would try to jump and like press a button, and I would just already be in the air hitting you with forward air.
Yeah.
And it's just like what you needed to do was like let that next thing happen, because that worst case scenario, if you were at like 40 and I grabbed you and threw you, that's it. There's no combos. That's it. You don't get hit again. But if you jump and you challenge, you get hit again and again and again and again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The big thing I want you to think about is like sometimes, like I want you to imagine there's like an L we got to take in a scenario, right? And the idea is just how do we make that L the smallest? If it's just I get back thrown at 60 and I don't immediately die versus getting back aired and being in a worse situation or potentially dying, then I'm going to take the throw.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Sometimes you're just going to have to get hit.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes we're in a scenario and it's like the odds of me winning the scenario is like 80-20. I'm probably going to get hit here. So how do I get hit in like the least shitty way possible? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's recap, my friend. What did you feel like you learned today?
One that I have if one action happens, I immediately jump a lot. If you stand at roll distance, I always try to do ledge jump into aerial. I'll do jump into button rather than just jump and react. The 3 options available to me, like in a given scenario, if someone does something, is retreat, fight, or choose defensive option.
Yep.
Such as shield. Process more, analyze less.
Yes. Good. All right. I think that's a good stopping point. Let me go.